Hey, if I could have your attention, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. Just go ahead and continue eating. We have the agenda up on the board so you can kind of see we've got a lot of things to cover today, so we'll try to go through this a little, make my remarks short and sweet. First of all, my name is John Sondag. I'm class of 1971, and I'm this year's president of the Alumni Board. And I just want to really thank everyone here for their, volunteering their time and their commitment to St. Louis U High and taking time to serve on the Alumni Board. I think the mission of the Alumni Board is very important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in today's meeting, but the time commitment you give is very important, so thank you. I also want to recognize some of the other officers of the Alumni Board. I know Tony Conroy, who's class of 78. Tony's fly fishing out in Montana. He's not here tonight, but Tony's served the last 2 years on the board. Jeff Rombach. Jeff is class of 1998. Thank you, Jeff. And I didn't see Mark Burns. I don't know if he's here or not. There he is. And Mark is class of 1993. So these are the guys that put in a lot of time to help plan the meetings throughout the year. So we've got a very, like I said, a very busy agenda tonight. And the first thing is I want to get to is our guest speaker. And that's Mr. Kevin Foy of the Social Studies Department. He teaches economics, including the advanced placement classes for college credit. He's the moderator of the student club called the Ignatian Business Leaders, and that's for students interested in business and entrepreneurial activities. And those of you that were here at our last meeting, we talked a little bit about entrepreneurship with Pie Pete's and some other things. So I think it's a very important thing for the kids today to really focus on. He's got some deep roots in Jesuit education, graduated from St. Ignatian High School in Cleveland. It's kind of our brother Jesuit school there, and then went on to St. Louis University. He taught at DeSmet for 14 years before coming to SLU, and he's been here now for 4 years. So please welcome Kevin Foy.
Good evening, everybody. As you just heard, my name is Kevin Foy, and I am the econ teacher and the chair of the Social Studies Department. I'm very honored to be here. This is a really kind of cool opportunity for me to meet a bunch of you, and I've appreciated the conversations that I've been able to have so far. Over the summer, Joe Patke kind of sent me an email as I'm sitting on the beach, and he said, would you kind of come and talk this fall at the Alumni Board meeting? And certainly touched by the offer and excited for the opportunity, but it's a little intimidating to look out over this crowd and see a group of people who are kind of out there representing what we want all of our students to be. So thanks for everything that you've done while you were a student and now what you're giving back as alums. We certainly appreciate it. Representation of what SLU strives to do. So I wanted to start off with a little background on me. Primarily, I see myself as a coach and a teacher. In previous jobs at DeSmet, in different positions, I taught theology, personal finance, business, and obviously economics as well. I've also coached lacrosse. I've run lacrosse businesses and travel teams and leagues and all sorts of things. And I've always had this suspicion that what I did outside of the classroom was as influential or maybe more influential than what I was able to do inside. About that relationship that you can have with students when you have them, their undivided attention, and they're choosing to be with you. So when I switched over to SLU, I decided that it was time to kind of hang up the whistle for a while. But I still wanted to have that good direct impact on students. So the Ignatian Business Leaders, this club that existed a little bit before I got here, was the way that I did that. So the IBL is SLU High's student-run business. When I met them, they were running the concession stand in the pool hall. And their goal was to learn about business by doing business, which I thought was a really good thing for them to be concentrating on. So I also thought that this would be a way that I could replicate the kind of impact that I was able to have on the field in an environment that helps students understand some of the practical elements of career preparedness. So we all know that a lot of students go on to work and major in fields like business and finance and accounting and economics, but there's not a ton of exposure to that in high school. So maybe their parents work in those sorts of fields, maybe they have a job as high school kids, or maybe they learn everything from watching The Wolf of Wall Street. I'm not really sure where they were getting their ideas, and I thought maybe this is an opportunity for us to intervene and to give them some good, meaningful, formative experiences. So part of what excited me about teaching at SLU was that I've always heard about this great network of resources. I know a lot of SLU alums when I was at Big SLU, and then just chatting with people in the neighborhood, I knew that SLU offered great opportunities, and I'm kind of a daydreamer, so I thought with a little bit of imagination and a lot of freedom, we could do some pretty interesting things. So in the back of my mind, fueled by the inspirational language of the Imagine 18 initiatives, this goal kind of started to form to give SLU High students the opportunity to be the most well-exposed students to entrepreneurship, business, and technology in the country. So here's some of the things we've been able to put together in the last few years. So year one, IBL was running the pool hall concession stand, and I decided, you know, we're gonna go about this the way student clubs grow. So we made announcements on the PA, we sent out email, we had word of mouth from the existing members of the club, and we got a lot of guys who showed up at our activity period meetings, and they were guys that wanted to major in business. And that was terrific. So they continued managing the stand, but I soon realized that, you know, selling candy wasn't that big of a challenge. They also realized that selling candy wasn't all that exciting. So they decided to design and sell iPhone cases. So you see them here. It was a lot of fun, sold a couple hundred units. I still have 4 more. If any of you guys are still using an iPhone 4 or 4S, you are welcome. They aren't worth very much these days. It was a wonderful lesson in Apple's planned obsolescence that worked out well for us. So we all knew that this was cool. Peddling some stuff, creating some things. It worked out well, but everybody wanted to grow. So we had this thought, if students are really going to be different, if they're gonna be able to talk about something that makes them unique and special, apart from everybody else, primarily for the college admissions process, they needed more than just a job. We thought maybe if they start their business, if they own their business, if this is real, then that'll be a big difference maker. So the focus shifted to entrepreneurship, away from management toward entrepreneurship. And IBL sort of became this umbrella organization where students would start their own businesses. We germinated a lot of business plans. We started by entering competitions. We had some groups participate in the Missouri Challenge, which is an entrepreneurship competition for basically everybody in the state. One of our teams, you see them here, these were 4 sophomores and 1 senior. They advanced to the finals and then got 4th place in the state, which was kind of cool. Most of the teams were doing this as part of a class. They'd been, you know, prepped on how to write a business plan. These guys came up with one in about an hour and a half at the University of, or at UMKC, and came in 4th with really no training at all, which tells you a little bit about the caliber of students that we have here. Additionally, we also sent a different team to the city finals in the 30-day challenge. Here you see the team with the judges from our internal competition. It was sponsored by Entrepreneurs Organization, so maybe you guys are, some of you are EO members, a great organization that's lended us some mentors and helped us move and grow. So what I learned was that while we were successful, we were probably ready for the next step, for something a little bit bigger. But over the summer, that previous year, a parent approached Dave Laughlin about an idea that he had. So Mr. Brett Kimes, who was at the time, a current as well as a past parent, take SLU High students to Wall Street, show them what it's really like to live and work in the capital markets. He had connections, he knew the city, and he was willing to come along to give 8 students this trip of a lifetime. And then the Junior Bills on Wall Street was born. So you see these 8 guys standing in front of the bull, which was pretty amazing. While we were there, we met with SLU alums Patrick Haskell, Tim Lauer, and Tom Purcell. At one point, we have there's a couple of students here. They're sitting on the bond trading floor at Morgan Stanley watching multi-million-dollar transactions take place. And it was pretty clear that what they were doing was pretty unique and pretty special. If I wasn't sure before, at this point, I knew that what we were doing was unique and really worth attending. We also had a small reception with a number of young alums who were living and working in the area, talking about what it's like to work in financial services, to live in New York. Basically, they told the story of how they got from Oakland Avenue to Wall Street. Stories about choosing majors, getting internships, networking. And it made the journey a lot less intimidating to the students with whom they were speaking. I think there were some that felt like the deck was a little stacked against a Midwestern guy. They thought, you know, if you don't go to a prep school in the Northeast and then go to the Ivy League college, it was difficult to make it. But they felt a little bit better after coming back. And they started to make some really big plans. And a couple of them are now in school in New York, which is fantastic. Also during that second year, alums Mark Mantovani, Mark Lewis, Joe Wagner, Francis Chimelier, and Jim Wersch provided some powerful counsel and practical connections with T-Rex and Arch Grants and Venture Cafe as we were growing and iterating further into the space around business and entrepreneurship. They listened, they helped troubleshoot, they offered ideas, and were a great sounding board for me as I worked to kind of figure out this area that I didn't have a ton of experience with. Then later that year, another alum and parent, Mr. Daniel Cox, called me up and he said, you know, I was talking with Tom Donnie and he would like to come and speak to the guys. So then a large group of students are sitting in the field house named after Mr. Donnie and his family, where he talked about the responsibility that comes along with having a SLU High education. And they got to ask questions about what it was like to run the largest insurance company in the world. After that second year, these students were reading article after article in the prep news. They were showing up more and more often to the various things that we had going on. And the excitement was really growing. Year 3 saw a little bit more expansion. So we have the Billiken Birthday Bash. You guys see the pamphlets there. If any of you have sons or daughters in elementary or middle school who would like to host their birthday party on campus, we have a group of students who will be happy to handle that party for you. We also took our second trip to Wall Street. We were able to expand the young alumni reception. And you see us here in the Jesuit Library at Xavier High School in Chelsea, where we had about a dozen young alums join our guys and have that kind of networking conversation again, but with even more people, which was terrific. Additionally, the Junior Bills on whatever place and street expanded by working with alumni and tech entrepreneur Matt Tanasi. So then we start the Junior Bills in Silicon Valley. So here you see them outside the headquarters of Google. These other 8 students who are interested in programming and IT visited the corporate headquarters of Google, Apple, and Facebook, along with 2 other startups in San Francisco, having those same kinds of conversations. Our technology teacher, Mr. Dan C., headed up that trip. And then our new head of college counseling, Mr. Kevin Crimmins, was also there because he wanted to better understand how he could help the students leverage these pretty unique experiences into their college admissions process. Most excited about was the SLU High Business Accelerator, also started last year. So alums Austin Smith and Justin Hastings lent their expertise. We met every other week for about 6 months, going through the business model canvas. I'm sure many of you are familiar. And we had these 6 teams go through the various iterations of writing and then starting their business plans. The top 2 teams were awarded cash investments of $1,000 and $500. And our winner, Skydration Systems, developed a 3D printed cap, which I'm not sure how well you can see what Andrew's holding there. We'll have another slide in a minute. But this cap basically has some tubes that come together. Joe, if you can go one more. So these tubes, one connects to the gutter of the roof of a home, and then as rainwater falls down, it goes in, fills up the can, and then once that can is full, the second tube spits it out into the next one, giving a series of rainwater collection devices that'll be deployed in Kenya in about 6 weeks in the first major operation and test case for all of that. It's a pretty fantastic thing that they're able to do. Water insecurity problem in the developing world. Our runner-up took a different direction. Blues Buzz is a sports blog and media platform that offered opinionated fan-based content for St. Louis Blues fans. Over the course of 1 season, they were able to generate over 200,000 views on their coverage, and their content has been picked up across several different platforms nationally. And then this summer, they rolled out Cardinals Buzz, and are starting to get some traction there as well. So SLU High students are excited, they're motivated, and they're accomplishing a lot of really great things. But at this point, some of you are probably thinking, what exactly do they learn while they're doing all of this stuff? Obviously, they learn a lot about creativity, teamwork, tenacity, and grit. But they also talk about some other things that surprised me a little bit. So first off, they learn that the world is not as centered around them as they are used to. At SLU High, we pride ourselves on the amounts of individual care that we give students. We pay attention and we genuinely want them to be successful. Our success really kind of depends on theirs, but the real world isn't always like that. So the Skydration guys have realized that at the end of the day, they're gonna have to buy their own 3D printer because they were having trouble with production and all sorts of stuff. So they had to take a $1,600 hit to their collection of capital, which wasn't what they wanted to hear. But it was also a really great lesson for them to learn now while they're still in a supporting and caring environment. Blues Buzz tells a story about how they have to be prepared all the time. In school, we have very clear deadlines, and SLU students, maybe some of you are in this boat, figure out very easily how to game those deadlines. They know that I can take it easy here, throw that Hail Mary pass, and I'm pretty good at completing it. But those guys, they have to be ready to pitch an advertiser or an investor all the time. That was a pretty cool lesson to talk through with these guys. Constant vigilance and preparedness are important, and it's going to serve those guys really well. So they also learn how important it is to get along with people, even people that they don't like. They learn that sometimes it doesn't matter who you like and who you dislike, but they also learn that when your interests converge, you can do great things, whether these are your friends or not. They learn the importance of networks, whether that's the St. Louis entrepreneurial scene, an alum in Lower Manhattan, or somebody that they know from their parish. They learn that who you know can make all the difference. Sometimes being the best and the brightest just doesn't get you that first meeting over the cup of coffee that can make all the difference. So they start paying attention to building those networks and those relationships. They learn that sometimes things just don't work, and they learn the value of recognizing sunk costs, which as an econ teacher is very important to me. It's not from a lack of effort or worth. Sometimes things just go sideways and you have to move on to the next idea. These are all things that they learn very effectively when they're out there doing it. SLU High is a very loving place, and I want it to remain that way forever. However, it's nice that we can offer just a tiny glimpse into some of the bleaker elements of the world that our students will find themselves living in just a few short years. So what's to come this year? What's to come in the future? So there's some ideas and dreams floating out there, some things that guys have brought up, some ideas that we've tossed around. The entrepreneurship, business, and technology interest survey that I send out at the beginning of the years, each year, got 220 responses in 72 hours, which is a response rate that I'm pretty happy with. We're going to host a bunch of speakers. Mr. Donnie is going to speak again later on this month. We're going to take at least 2 trips, maybe 3. We're going to run our startup accelerator again. We're going to participate in competitions. We're going to enter hackathons. We're going to partner with several different organizations and do everything in our power to reach that goal, the goal of giving SLU High students the best exposure to entrepreneurship, business, and technology in the country. I love doing it, but it's growing at a pace that I didn't anticipate, and the guys that are helping me with this didn't necessarily anticipate. And we're sort of struggling to keep up, but we're confident that we can make it happen. But I want to paint a little bit of a vision for the future. So in the future, I see more students running small businesses. These businesses will have elements of the small hustle type jobs that all of us had, or a lot of us probably had growing up, but they'll grow faster, they'll be larger, they'll be more advanced, and they'll be more nimble as our students can capitalize on the information available to them in this very connected world. The artists and designers will team up with the coders and the engineers, making a great product or service that the slick talkers of SLU High will be able to figure out how to sell. Students will meet and talk together about the challenges they've run into. They'll partner and teach one another, bring along the younger students. All the advantages that young entrepreneurs gain when they're out in co-working spaces, that'll exist here. Because if SLU High is anything, it's a co-working space. It's a place where we all contribute, where we all learn together. It's what we do every day. So they won't need to be on Washington Avenue or at Cortex. We'll be able to provide them with the support services in the network right here while they're at SLU High. I envision students having meaningful internships at firms that are truly interested in creating an experience that will craft their knowledge base in unique ways, similar to the symbiotic relationships students have with the agencies where they do their senior projects. Our students will contribute, they'll learn, and they'll be able to gain a new and different set of skills that will continue to differentiate them. These experiences will give them an awareness of themselves that is currently very difficult to achieve. They'll know more about what they do and don't like. They'll know more about what they might want to study in college, or maybe what they want to avoid. They'll have a compelling personal story to tell about how they are well qualified to attend the university of their choice, and they'll have experiences that make them great candidates for substantial scholarships. All of these things are actually happening right now in kind of different one-off scenarios. But I think the future could see them experiencing this in a systemic way, in an intentional way. We're not there yet, and it'll take some patience and vision to move the ship toward the horizon. So we have opportunities to dream, we have opportunities to motivate, to organize, but at the end of the day, I sit in the ivory tower. I hope that that ivory tower gave you some of the best 4 years of your lives. And since you've left, you've all done some inspiring things, and you've gathered experiences that are difficult to get from within these hallowed halls. Students know that, I know that, you all know that as well. So we can't keep it going alone. Over the next year, what I'd like to do is just start gathering information. I don't know what this is going to look like. Certainly nobody's making any promises, but we've got some ideas. So maybe some of you guys would be interested in having conversations about this. I think I'm relatively easy to find. So I think a major reason that SLU has been so successful in so many ways for so very long is the careful and intentional institutionalization of best practices. When we do whatever it is we're going to do, we want to make sure that we're in the best position to do it really, really well. You heard a lot of names of your friends and classmates sprinkled throughout this presentation. The SLU community is wonderfully vibrant, and I knew that when I came here, all I needed to do was ask some good questions, put shape to some dreams, talk with Dave and the other advancement folks, and let the Holy Spirit and Mr. and Mrs. Backer kind of do their thing. Those of you with brothers, sons, grandsons, nephews, neighbors who are at SLU now or on their way here, know that the goal of giving students the best exposure to entrepreneurship, business, and technology is something that I think about a lot, and a lot of other people here do as well. Thank you very much. I'd love to answer some questions if you have some. Sir.
I have a serious problem with terms like hustle, slick talkers, preparing people for business success. I don't think there's any problem in the world of getting people to think about Wall Street and Silicon Valley. The problem is to think about other kinds of careers or self-sacrifice, which I hope that's what we'll learn here. So I don't think that promoting business and entrepreneurship is necessarily for what we ought to do. I understand that's your commitment, but you keep using the business term. You talk about best practices, you talk about network, you talk about slick talkers. I like that. Hustle. That's not my situation.
Thank you. I think it's important to accentuate that this is a portion of what we do, of what I do, I should say. But you're certainly not wrong, and we don't want to lose the Jesuit values that made us what we are. We don't want to lose the humanities. And I don't think anybody is hoping that that's where this goes. We're not trying to be a tech school or a trade program or anything. We're trying to offer a wide variety of services. Thanks. Yes, sir.
How do you integrate the technology part into no entrepreneurship? That's probably no different than any success. What's the key relationship here? I know a lot of startups right now are kind of focused on apps. What is that key relationship?
Right. So the question is about what the key relationship is between technology and business and entrepreneurship. And I think that part of it is the creation, whatever it is that they're doing, has some sort of technological input. But certainly what we need is, if we're going to move forward with these sorts of ideas, what we need is the people who can do the creation, the people who can do the making, as opposed to exclusively people who can think about it or come up with that idea. So I see technology as different from gadgetry and much more about the technical knowledge and expertise that allows something to be created. So where that happens, whether it's through partnerships with the STEM initiatives that you may have heard about if you were here last year, robotics and expansion in that areas, those sorts of things, we find that there's a nice symbiotic relationship there. Yes.
Is there an ongoing reminder in these efforts when all of the involvement of technology, business, Wall Street, Morgan Stanley, whatever, and for others, that they're not just doing this like talking about technology?
Absolutely. Yeah, so when we are lining those people up, we're very intentional about who we see and what they talk about. We know that it's about a lot more. But we also know that people with the right kind of values have the right kind of success. And those are the kind of people who are most interested in talking to our students. And that is always an underpinning. What they learned here, they don't talk about what they learned in business school very much. They talk about the values that they learned here and how they're able to turn those into positive relationships that give them freedom to make choices, to build things that have a lasting legacy. And most of those things have the same kind of philanthropic roots that we would anticipate.
Because I would anticipate that the feedback from the students, the questions or comments, do prove
very much so. Yeah. That's been my experience anyway. I think that the students here understand that. I think that the Jesuit values of St. Louis U High are very clearly at the forefront of our students' minds. And while students want worldly success, it's not the only thing that they look at. And I should have gone further into that. I apologize for not being a little bit more upfront with some of those goals, but that is always a part of what we are looking for when these people talk. Because we're not just bringing in the most successful people in their field, we're bringing in graduates of St. Louis U High who became successful in their field. And that relationship between where they were and where they are is the essential component that we're really looking for and what we ask them to discuss and what they are more than happy to discuss. I'll stick around for a little while, so thank you very much. Look forward to your feedback.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. One of the things I failed to do in my welcoming remarks is I know that a lot of these meetings will have people that they're here for their first time, and I would like to just ask if there is anyone here for the first time, if you could please stand, just really give your name, maybe what you do for business, maybe what year you graduated St. Louis U High. So do we have any first timers here?
Brian Watkins, I'm class of '86. I run a private banking area for County Bank. Matt Latcher, 2006. I work for Wells Fargo Advisors. My date is class of '97.
Okay, very good. Thank you guys for coming, and I encourage you to ask your other classmates and fellow alums if they have an interest in getting involved in the alumni board to please do that. And you can always see Joe Patke if you need more information on that. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the annual giving highlights and then the phonathons. You'll have a blue sheet at your handout at your table. And that really kind of lists out, by class, the percentage of giving for the various classes over the past year. And, first of all, I just want to thank, the alumni board and all our alums for their generous contributions to the school. I know Dave Lawson will talk a little bit later about this year's class. And I think when you hear about the percentage of kids that receive financial aid, a lot of that comes really from the efforts of the alumni and this alumni board to help raise those funds. Last year we had over 3,200 alums give contributions to St. Louis U High, and that resulted in a record of about $5.2 million in gifts to St. Louis U High last year. Now, many of you are aware of the Go Forth campaign. We're in the quiet phase of that. So some of that increase that we saw over the past year was a result of that quiet phase, but still, I think it's I think it bodes well as to maybe the future success of that campaign. Our participation rates overall, we actually saw a slight decline from 27% to this past year 26%. But there are a lot of success stories, and then you'll see it in that blue sheet. There were 4 classes really that achieved participation rates of 50% or more. And I do want to just highlight them because I think that's a fantastic achievement. The class of '61 led the way with nearly 59% participation. And the class of '60, must have been something right going at that time, was second with 55%. Class of '65 and '70 each hit the 50% milestones as well. So that's great. We had a total of 20 classes that achieved 33% are better. So I think it's very important, not only to give, but, to get as many of our alumni to participate in this fundraising effort. Every dollar helps and every additional percentage helps, which really leads me into the next thing, and that's the phone-a-thons. I know that everyone here that's been on the 5 new people that came, you might not be aware of it. Those that have been on the alumni board for a while, that, one of the keystone events we have each year is the phone-a-thon. The dates of those are listed up here. And so I would encourage all of you, if you haven't done this, it's really a lot of fun. You come down with your classmates and you get pizza and beer, and you make a few phone calls, get a chance to talk to some of your classmates that maybe you haven't. But the staff does a great job in giving you all the information you have. And I know it's very good to get creative. I know I got a lot of my fellow class of 71 classmates here, and we'll take different approaches. We either email them, we call them. We'll take some of those lists home and spend several days just sending those contacts and making those calls and emails. So there's a lot of different ways, especially with social media now, to try to attract and get a hold of the folks. But it's really important, I think, that if we don't have the folks coming into the phone-a-thon and helping to work and it's kind of spreading that work around in those calls, that makes it a lot easier for everybody. I think it makes it more successful. So I would just really encourage all of you to, if you haven't done it, to please sign up for that. And you can look at those dates, and if you got any questions, you can grab me after the meeting. Many of you know that we're 2 years away from our 200th anniversary and our bicentennial celebration. And one of the things that is going on in preparation of that is really the gathering all the historical documents, the stories, the photos, everything that really kind of tells the story of St. Louis U High. And Terry Donahue from the class of 1963 is part of the group of alumni volunteers who are working to create the SLU archives. And I've asked Terry if he'd like to come up and just give us a status on how that project's going.
I'm running because Joe Packey said, hurry it up. Only sorry. Before I start, Tom Ehrman, you need to call home. You're in a boil water at home. Yeah, you know that. So when you go home and you have to boil your water for your evening cocktail, I want to know how you do that without melting the ice. Okay, thank you. Hi, folks. I'm Terry Donahue from the class of 63. I just want to give you a little update of what's been going on, probably since about the last year that I was able to address you. We've made some fits and starts, but we've come a long way now. Where we are in the project is we realized early on in the project that in order to successfully complete the project, we had to have a way to organize all the material and put together a system for retrieval and storage. So we investigated several pieces of software, and we now have software that's going to make us able to bring collections in, bring archivable documents and artifacts in, be able to store them, record it, and anytime anybody needs anything, like for instance, Joe Packey had mentioned to us in the past, as reunions come up, people come up to him and say, we really want to see if we can get X, Y, and Z for the reunion. Now we'll have a much quicker way to access those items because we'll have a system to be able to retrieve the information and know where it's all stored. We also have we're being made, it's being made known to us now that we're going to have access to a couple of collections. For instance, Father Hagen's sister came to us about 3 weeks ago and said that she has not a trove, but she has quite a bit of information, artifacts and documents and stuff that Father Hagen had that she's going to turn over to the school. And we'll probably start to create collections of people like this, like Joe Schulte, God bless his soul. Before he passed away, we knew he had some information, or he had a lot of material not only stored at the school, but stored at home. So hopefully we're going to be able to access that and have a if you will, quote unquote, a Joel Schulte collection for people to access. One of the deliverables that we had talked about a year ago that now the school is committed to is going to be a commemorative book about the history of the school. Not sure exactly what size it's going to be, but we've been in discussions with Ben Dumont, and he has been in discussions with a printer who's capable of doing this, who has done commemorative books like this before. We're in the process of, it hasn't started yet, but we're going to be selecting a writer. But between now and probably early spring next year, the fellows on the archive committee with me are going to prepare the materials for that writer to have access to write that book. It will probably be a timeline type of a book, similar to what you might have seen for the 250th anniversary of St. Louis, or Mizzou's was their athletic department put something out not recently that's similar in nature of a timeline that this would look like. So it'll be significant event type of things in the book that'll recall the history of the school from its very beginnings. And there's one of two things I just want to leave you with is two requests. Excuse me. And I noticed on the sheet on your tables, you had this sheet about the Go Forth Centennial Celebration about brainstorming ideas. One of the things we wanted to request of you tonight was part of part of putting the book together is going to be coming up with significant events in the history of the school. I'm sure all of us can come up with significant events that we had during our years here, like whose girlfriend became the part of the prom court at CBC or whatever. But we're not talking about stuff like that. We're really just talking about significant events that historically made this school what it is. People, events, careers, especially we're trying to find out more about the careers and the history of people who have graduated from the school and what impact they had on the lives of others, because that's truly what the school is all about. So if you have any significant events, historical, important people in lives of St. Louis U High that you think might need to be highlighted, I'm just going to ask that you send that information into this bicentennial at SLU.org also, because that information will eventually filter back down to us, those of us who will be working on that book. The second request that I have is we want to reach out a little bit more to all of the classes to try to bring into our archives more information about the terrific things that graduates of the school have done for others. So what I'm asking you to do tonight is, I'll have a sheet in the back. We want to try to get a member, at least a member from each class, to give us their contact information. And we want to come back to you so you can go back to your classmates. Who better else to go back to your classmates and ask them for this information than members of their own class, as opposed to us. Let us use you as a focal point to feedback information about what we're doing and try to draw information back into our project about what other people have done for others as they spread throughout the world as they graduate from here. Please let us know if you would like to do that for us, and that we'll have a sheet in the back of the room. And I think, thank you. I got here late. Thank you for those of you who helped us identify some of the events and people in these pictures. That's all part of the archives. We've got a trove of pictures, but the booklet, the book that will be published will be loaded with pictures, because sometimes pictures in and of themselves just describe a significant event in the school's history. So that's part of what we're trying to put together as we go through all the material. That's it from here, and thanks for your support.
Well, thanks, Terry. Thanks for your leadership and kind of leading this project. I think, to think back that we're going to have kind of archived 200 years of the rich history of the school, I think, your efforts of you and your committee are going to ensure that those stories and those things are not lost. So thanks again for that. At this time, I'm going to ask Dave Laughlin, the SLU president, to come up and just kind of give us a school update.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you. Welcome. I want to thank John for serving as our alumni board president this year. I want to thank Terry and the group that he leads for helping to plan our archive group and all the work they do. It's been interesting to see the different things that they bring in. I want to thank Kevin for being here tonight, the work he's doing in the IBL. And I know there was a brief discussion about, mission vis-a-vis the work he does. And I was sitting thinking about being with our students in New York with young graduates. These are guys just starting their career, and the entire dinner conversation surrounded your soul and what you're doing and what they see and observe. I think the integrity and the ethics that's in the program is pretty tremendous. And the program he passed over quickly, there was a picture of these guys who did skydration. That's their business idea, and it's to help people in Kenya capture rainwater off their roof systems, because they leave with these jerry cans, and mostly women trek hundreds or thousands of miles a year so their families can have water. And their idea, which they've converted into a business idea after understanding different components of it with trial and error, is something they're about to launch. And it's a big dream to help people, but it's a business plan. And I think at the end of the day that sense of mission and what they're learning is palpable. So I'm grateful, as Kevin's starting his year, that he was with us tonight. Just a few words about the start of our school year. We started over the summer since we got together last, and we lost a couple of legends at St. Louis Shoe High. Father Bob Weiss and Joe Schulte, who certainly Joe Schulte gave his whole life, really, after coming here at age 14 to this school, only but for his family as his first priority. And Father Bob Weiss, who is a graduate and a veteran, also committed himself not only to two different terms as president here, but as somebody who served on board committees and was tireless in promoting us. So we've got two saints in heaven, and so we remember them in our prayers, and men and women like them who really have been on this faculty and administration, and they are the current examples when we remember at Mass our faculty and our staff and our alumni who have gone before us. There's a neat, in the first floor hallway, across from the elevator, of our current seniors, who happens to be the grandson of Tom Bannister, did for me this last year. Every year I've asked, Eagle Scouts come to me and say, Mr. Laughlin, do you have any ideas for an Eagle Scout? And every year for 11 years I said the same thing. Yes, our school does a very poor job of telling its history. Will you please go into our archives? We'll work with you and get a photo of like a famous, well-renowned Jesuit or lay teacher who spent years here, and you hear alumni talk about them. Can you frame a picture and create a little biography about them so we can start telling that story in our hallway? And Scott just completed the first one of those. It's this wonderful presentation of men that you guys talk about when you're together at reunions from generations. Mr. Conway, Mr. Schulte's on that wall. Father Jerry Sheehan's on that wall. Father John Devine's on that wall. Father John Doyle is on that wall. So he really did a beautiful thing. And I think it's important that we all remind ourselves the human beings who have carried that work of God here at school. We lost a couple of giants this summer, guys. Let me give you a quick update on our school year. We have started. We're just in our second week, really, essentially, after lots of orientations, etc. We started with 1,046 students, and this is the time of year we hit a lot of the highlights of how we've done academically in recent past. We gave the second highest total of advanced placement exams, 935 last year, in 28 disciplines, which I'm pretty sure is the highest number of disciplines that we have given AP exams in the past. And of interest, there are 4 or 5 of those areas where we don't offer the AP course, but because of the curriculum in that particular department, kids can sit for the AP exam, and they're doing extremely well. 88% of our kids on those 935 tests got 3s, 4s, or 5s. which is a pretty tremendous accomplishment. And it's very strong and just in terms of historical numbers. If we go to the next slide, in the AP exams, the College Board rates students with different categories of success. And I think just to break that down, there's some impressive numbers to think about as well. We had 87 kids who were what's called an AP scholar. That means they had a 3 or higher on 3 or more tests. And of our kids, that average was 3.43. 51 of them are what's called an AP scholar with honor. That means they scored that well on 4 or more tests. 57 were AP scholars of distinction who averaged 4.18 on 5 or more AP tests, and 7 of them are AP national scholars who scored 4 or higher on 8 or more advanced placement exams, all reinforcing my practice of not staying in one place too long with our students, because if I talk for too long, they're going to figure out that I'm not as smart as they are. Let's see, we have annually National Merit Scholarship semifinalist numbers, and that number is technically embargoed. I love it. Every year we get that mail. It's embargoed. It's the only piece of mail so far I've gotten that's embargoed. I think that's good news. But I can tell you we did well, and we'll rate very high in the state once again. And I can also say I don't think this is embargoed. They have a cutoff on this standardized test every year. It's the highest I've ever seen by 3 points. So to still be a leader when the cutoff for the test that counts students for national merit moving up, I think says even more about this year's group. Our ACT average for the last 5 years rolls into another year of 30. And I think that's an important statistic because academically the ACT is an achievement-oriented test. It's testing what you know. And an average score of 30 places our students in about the top 3 to 5% nationally. About a third of our seniors score 32 or higher. And when we compare that to achievement testing when they were incoming freshmen, what we know is that the rigor of our curriculum has moved them along a continuum of standardized national testing, meaning they've improved. Smart guys who came here smart have improved in their smartness thanks to the work of our faculty. So that's, and the students' hard work. I want to say a word as we start the school year about something that we've worked on. The ubiquitous nature of technology is an important thing for us in our Jesuit heritage to embrace. It is where the world is, and yet to do so without thought and without reflection and without purpose is anathema in our tradition. And so around the school right now, there's these place cards where you'll see tech use area, no tech use area. And as our students more and more have technology as a portion of their learning in a classroom in their hands, we are drawing what Jim Linares, our assistant principal, calls bright lines for kids. We are all, I'll put myself at the front of the line, victims of checking our screens all the time more and more. And so we're trying in the culture of the school to embrace technology where it's valuable for learning. Most of our science labs are online data-driven labs, right? Certainly the reporting. Almost all, I think, of the science textbooks coming out are online. One of our teachers authored, I talked about it last year, a textbook interactively with high school and Jesuit university professors across the world on environmental science. Help a young man say, now is the time to put that screen away. So when they come to lunch every day, no screens. You're here to talk to your classmates. If you're in the hallway and you need to open up your iPad to check your assignments or your appointment, fine. Otherwise, no technology. Trying to build into them this 3-word repetition that we've seen posted around the school. Intention, habit, leads to formation. So I'm really proud of it because I think we are both using technology for unique and interesting ways for learning. And at the same time, we're very mindful about the brain research and about all of the habits associated with just constant screen use. And so far, kids are pretty open to it. Kids are pretty good about saying, I get it. And I'm glad that there's some rules, etc. So that's an initiative that we're launching that I'm proud of. We've done a fair amount of conversation about strategic planning, and I just wanted to quickly highlight as we start this school year, some things that I would say are visions becoming realities. It's one thing to sit around and talk about where we are today and where would we like to be. And it's another thing to block and tackle and plan and execute and try and fail and retry different initiatives that are happening. And I'm really proud to say in so many different areas of our school, we are not a school that is sitting, resting, saying, you know, we're the top and whatever. We are a school that is, the language of many of our faculty is a growth mindset. It's not celebrating and patting ourselves on the back for any level of achievement. It's about that God-given idea of being a constant learner. How can we do better? How can we deliver better? How can we create experience for kids that are better? And I will say, we've had economics here for years and with great success. But one of the initiatives that came out of our planning was that learning be more experiential, collaborative, and that it have some tangible connection to the external world. We still need the cognitive learning that's happened, but we have programs and plans happening all over that students are embracing because of the nature of the type of learning they're doing. And so they're in a lot of different ways. We envision growing our international exchange and our international immersion experiences. These are both service and learning opportunities for our students who travel to many places over the course of the summer. But in incremental ways, we will have our first exchange student from China graduate today. We have welcomed for the first time 2 students from our partner school in Russia, and they are here not just visiting, but as students for the first semester. We are doubling, we're sending a second trip to the Nutrition Center in Honduras that our students raise awareness and dollars for to feed starving infants in a nutrition center that really was the birthed out of St. Louis U High. We are initiating a Keno Border Initiative trip for our students in campus ministry, and we will double the number of service trips we take to Appalachia to go on top of a summer service trip we do in Camden, New Jersey. These are about global awareness, they're about justice, they're about service, they're about understanding big realities in the world that combine experience, information, service, and prayer and reflection. And I'm proud to see these things going. We are looking to expand our retreat requirement to 4 years. After all, Ignatius is the patron saint of retreats, and we added a freshman retreat early in my time. Our students are required to do that. They're required to make a sophomore retreat, and then they elect in junior and senior year. And we want ever more to eliminate that elective and say this is a part of being at a Jesuit school. So last year we implemented plans in our calendar to eliminate the conflict between academics and retreat so that students going on retreat didn't feel like they had to make up work and time. And through the course of our campaign and through the course of our planning, one of the efforts we want is for students to go all 4 years in a schedule that works for them, and ideally at no extra cost. Our retreats right now have been historically an extra amount of money to help us cover the cost of retreat centers and food and transportation, et cetera. So we are planning on adding next year the required junior retreat. There's a huge effort to really grow that enrollment this year. We are working on increasing our service requirements to 4 years. We added a freshman required service where our freshmen now are required twice to go, and we go in St. Louis to St. Peter and Paul Shelter when it was open. We went to Karen House. They are at St. Patrick's Center, really learning about these organizations that support the poor and doing so through a food drive. They'll kick off next week raising money and collecting food where they use the kitchen that's in the Kurgan room, dining room, and they prepare those meals, they deliver those meals, they interact with the poor and serve them, and that's all a part of that freshman development effort. And then senior year, we have the senior service projects that are historical here. We certainly have a volume of service for sophomores and juniors, but our hope is to make that just a churning part of the program for 4 years as well. We're also in the early stages of just noodling about creating our own. We send our kids to Camden, New Jersey every summer for about the last 7 years to something called the Archbishop Oscar Romero Center for Justice. And a part of our collective reflection on that was that while those immersion trips are good for our kids, there's a lot of local need. And what if we could create something here that became a center for service and education and justice, that we then invited our Jesuit partners from around the country to come to our city. And so we're just in the beginning stages of looking at mapping something like that out. We are introducing in a real incremental way an Arabic studies program, something I think I've talked about before. This is looking at the world, I think, the way our predecessors did, and saying what aspect of our world do we want our students to be well-versed in understanding. And so that's something we think also supplements the curriculum. We have some plans taking place between our math department, our science department, and our computer science department on new initiatives in STEM. We already heard from Kevin Foy. I think we've talked previously at this group about our robotics and service program, the Clavius Project, which started 2 years ago as an idea for seniors on senior service to go into underserved city schools and take 6th, 7th, and 8th grade middle school students and their teachers who literally didn't have a computer and teach them EV3 Lego robotics kits. So Legos, I think most of everybody knows Legos, and they're still Legos like you snap together, only they come with wires and you program them. I know I talked last spring, we hosted a jamboree for 130 city middle school kids. We're looking to serve almost 500 students. And the Clavius Project now has 8 different high schools, private Catholic schools, public schools, charter schools, whose high school students are working together to help educate middle school students in our region who don't have those resources. And the middle school students are on fire with that type of mentoring and learning and service. And it's providing a resource in many schools that economically and or just instruction wouldn't have it. So these are all these kind of buzzwords of experiential learning and collaborative learning and global education that are finding their way well into some reality in our school. What's next? Oh, yes, counseling services. We are referring to our counseling as student support services. And student support services is really taking a model that had a counselor trying to do everything for a boy and providing 3 distinct tracks: personal, academic, social counseling, learning consultants for organizational, executive functioning skills, things that are important to be successful, and college counseling. And so for the first time, we're presenting that to families as well in order to try to think about our students and serve them where they're at and what they need in their developmental years of high school. Okay, let's see what's next. I thought it would be good, John mentioned that I would allude a little bit to the campaign, and I'm nearing the end of my remarks, so if you're checking your watches. I thought it would be good to just reflect a little bit on the importance of this group, say, over a longer horizon than year to year. We throw up some dates for Phonathon, and we look at the numbers for Phonathon, and as I'm standing here now, I realize I probably should have done some work with my staff so I spoke correctly. But I'm just going to say maybe we bring in a couple $100,000 a year through Phonathon. And that's a big number. You can divide it by tuitions and talk about educating kids. But when you talk about a group of men who I've been coming to this room with for a decade, and you start to roll that out over years, and you put it as a component of a larger set of planning to really ensure the future of this school and all the good work it does, your work makes a tremendous difference. So think about this just in terms of the last roughly 10 years. We've been able to grow our financial aid from $800,000 of direct aid to $3.8 million, from 18% of our kids to over 40% of our kids. We've done it at the same time that while we had a 30-year average tuition increase of 9%, that by design, our last 5 years have been less than 4%. Last year's 3%, the lowest on any group of tuition increases I can see. And it's not been done by a sense of anything more than our planning and our desire to keep that long-term tuition horizon as low as we can for the legitimate costs and expenses of the school. We have taken on no debt in 10 years, and we've paid the debt from $21.5 million to $13 million. We've refinanced that debt twice, lowering the interest rates and saving the net present value, and we've never extended the term. We've always kept the debt within the window that it was taken on to achieve the things it did. This is important. The endowment has grown from $25 million to $35 million. Think about the fact that between indirect and direct financial aid, this year we will give $5 million of aid away. A $35 million endowment is a really short-term endowment if you're not successful in your annual efforts. And when you consider that we have $13 million of debt against that endowment, the net endowment's even less. So the strategy that we've talked about in our campaign is to try to position the school to the right priorities that allow the school to continue to admit young men based on their ability to learn and not their family's economic circumstance. It's not on this slide, but I'm extremely proud of the fact that in the last 10 years, we have doubled the minority enrollment in our school. And that doesn't always certainly lead to an economic need, but often it does because we are trying to target students in schools, largely in the city, who we know can be capable of being successful here, but not if they don't have the opportunity. So that number really is something against that annual generosity of the school to live into that vision. It's important for us to have an endowment to be in a position to do the types of things many people think we have for the long term. We simply haven't talked about our finances, in my estimation, until more recently. And our base is smart, and they understand what it means in terms of long-term care of the school. And so that's the initiative that we've tried to undertake with the Go Forth campaign in its silent phase. That $37 million would be the need on an annual basis for financial aid, combined with a growth of the equivalent of 87 fully endowed scholarships. And so we're on our way with about $25 million of cash and commitments against that 70, and we'll remain in a silent phase of this campaign. If you're new tonight and you're just hearing about this, okay, I'm happy to get you flyers and leaflets and we can go to lunch. But I think it's extremely important as a body that stays informed about the school that you do understand where those initiatives are in terms of their priority. And so I think without the help of 10 years, that might be a couple $1 million from this group in phone-a-thons that the school could be in an entirely different position, meaning our students wouldn't be the students we're serving today, meaning our planning on the business side of things to ensure the mission couldn't be where it was today. So never underestimate the importance of the role that you play in that regard. And now I want to end with a 1 and 47-second video of, again, we talk about, there's a lot of buzzwords. And it's important, I think, to always cut through the buzzwords and say, what does that mean? And so one of the buzzwords in education right now is this an acronym STEM, science, technology, engineering, math. It's extremely important, right? But it's not on an island or on a bubble. And then we talk about initiatives that deepen student learning. So there is a teacher that teaches environmental science where they're studying, like Pope Francis' Laudato Si document on care for the environment, where they're working with Jesuit high schools and colleges across the world to look at atmospheric science. And they were going to study and look at atmospheric science information, which one could sit in a classroom and do through a textbook and virtual and lecture. But I think as an example of these experiential initiatives, these collaborative initiatives that our faculty are engaged in, our teacher went out and wrote a grant. And he got a grant for about $2,500 that funded a weather balloon, the one that collects real data, so they could do a weather balloon launch. And our science department had to talk to our technology department, which then connected with our SLU Tube student activity video group. And all of a sudden, before we got a first full week of school under our belt, there was this collection of students out on the lawn, and they were getting ready to launch a weather balloon. And they came from all these different places in the school. And this is a video that shows just 1 minute and 47 seconds of what they accomplished. But before I show it, I'm going to say the beauty of video editing is you get to put together the video that it looks super successful. And it was. But I think true teaching, and I think Kevin alluded to this earlier in the trial and error of what students face, what happened right before what you see is I was standing out there, I was walking an alum, and I said, well, let's go see the weather balloon launch. Okay. And we're standing out there, and they fill the weather balloon with helium, and then they wrap it, and they re-wrap it, and everybody checks system, all systems go, and they said, okay, and the balloon went up, and it stopped. And I videoed it, I should have shown it, but I didn't, and you hear our teacher say, uh-oh, we don't have enough lift. So it sat there, and they all sat around, and they're looking at their clocks because the bell's gonna ring, and they got another class to go to. But yet they got this project for class that's a weather balloon, so they're undoing it, and they're getting the helium tank, and they refill it, and they set it go again, and they go, oh! Still not enough lift. Now the bell's ringing. They know they're going to be late for class. There's a lot of pressure there, right? But they got to get this weather balloon up. So they refill it the third time, and then here's what happened. They're flying a drone. We have a drone for our video club. It worked that time. So you saw quickly on a map there, it traveled a pretty fair distance into Illinois, and I should have mentioned it's not a small endeavor. Literally, this is our science teacher on the phone with the FAA, who know of the grant, they know of the balloon, we got to launch it, they're getting all the permissions, and then they tracked all of the data from that. And when you talk about experiential learning, I suspect that their lesson on atmospheric science will mean much, much more to them because of the way they learned it than had they been sitting in a lecture hall doing that. So thanks so much for your support. I know we've got more to do. I'm around afterwards if anybody has questions. Thanks so much, and God bless you.
All right, thanks, Dave. Just a couple things before we wrap up, and I know everybody's been very good not looking at their phones. The Cardinals are up 5-2, and they've homered, so I think it's 25 games in a row. So we'll get you out of here shortly. Just want to go over some of the upcoming events, and you can see up here the Mikey Trivia event. That night is there's information on your table handout for that. There's a pregame tailgate party before the September 29th game versus Vianney. The pregame party for alum and their families will be here in the Commons. We will also have some of our former football players who will be honored at halftime, a chance to go out to the field. On September 30th is the annual reunion night. I know my class of 71, we're having our 45th that night. This is one of the things where I think we would look for the alumni board to give us a little help. There's the stag night is here. There's several classes, and we do need some volunteers that'd be willing to come in. It's really just kind of directing people, your class is down in this room, things like that. So if anybody has an interest in kind of giving a little time that night, please see Joe Patke. We'd really appreciate your help on that. The John Mahon Memorial Golf Tournament, there's flyers on that on the table as well. Then the annual Remembrance Mass, that's on Saturday, November 19th, and that's really where all alumni will have a candle lit, and it's really just a way to remember them. And there'll be Mass at 4:30, and it'll be followed by a reception. Moving a little bit ahead into December, we have the Alumni Night at the basketball game. It's December 22nd, it's prior to the DeSmet game. And this will be the 100th anniversary of Junior Billiken basketball. I was very proud. I was a hoopster in my days. No more, though. But so there'll be some save the date notices going a little bit later to give you more information on that. And one of the things I want to hit too, we have a couple of retreats, alumni retreats down at the White House. And the first one's a weekend retreat. That's January 5th through the 8th. And it goes from a Thursday evening through Sunday afternoon. That one is extremely popular. It sells out or fills up very quickly. And really, we get more people wanting to go there than we can handle. The other retreat is really a midweek retreat. That's November 28th through December 1st. That's the Monday night through a Thursday afternoon. And this is just the opposite. This one never fills up. So I know those that are interested in going, those that are retired or have the time, I would encourage you, if you want to go, try to go to the one that's the midweek, because that would allow some spaces to fill up on the weekend one. So for those folks that can't go during the midweek, would allow them to go for that. So there'll be more information on that as well. So, and finally, our next meeting will be Sunday, December 4th. That'll be Mass at 9 a.m. followed by our brunch meeting. And I'll conclude by just, thanking you once again for your volunteering to serve on the alumni board, your commitment to St. Louis U High. And I would just ask a personal thing on your way home. Dave often talked about the technology, and there's a time and a place to, look at your cell phone. I would say when you're in your car driving home, please put your phone down and don't text while you're driving. So with that, I appreciate your time, and we're adjourned.